Hello and welcome back to Game Audio Analysis. Before we get too far into the video, I'd like to take a second to thank the website shoryuken.com. A member of their staff who goes by the username xtopdoll shared my last video about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite and even did a full write-up. As a longtime fighting game fan, it's really exciting to be featured on such a well-known news site for the genre. I'll leave a link in the description in case you want to check out the article for yourself. Now today, we're going to be talking about a very different kind of game. A little while ago, one of my friends convinced me to play Alien Isolation. I love sci-fi, but I'm usually not one for stealth or horror games. Since this game falls under stealth and horror, I was a bit apprehensive to play it. Needless to say, it took some serious convincing from my friend, but her efforts eventually paid off. Not only did I end up really enjoying the game, but I was continually amazed by its effective uses of audio. And apparently, I'm not the only one to think this. Alien Isolation even won the BAFTA Game Awards for Audio Achievement in 2015 over the likes of Call of Duty, Mario Kart, and the Banner Saga. For those of you who don't know, BAFTA is the British Academy of Film Arts and Television. Their awards are the British equivalent of the Academy Awards of the United States, and winning one is a big honor. So without further ado, let's analyze the sound of Alien Isolation. Developed by Creative Assembly and published by Sega, Alien Isolation is a first-person survival horror game. Released on October 7, 2014, the game is based on the Alien film franchise, and even fits within the series timeline. Players step into the shoes of Amanda Ripley, who's the daughter of the movie protagonist Ellen Ripley. Amanda is traveling to the Sevastopol station to find out what happened to her mother, whose spaceship mysteriously vanished 15 years earlier. Upon arriving at Sevastopol, this simple mission to gather information quickly spirals out of control. The station is deserted aside from a few inhabitants that are absolutely terrified. Why? Because the xenomorph is running around killing civilians. Cue audience gasps of surprise. Joking aside, this means that the player has to explore the space station to obtain information about Amanda's mother, while avoiding a deadly alien. If that wasn't enough, the player also has to avoid corrupt androids, known as Working Joes, and the crazed citizens of Sevastopol. And when I say avoid these things, I really mean avoid. Fighting is usually the worst thing you can do in Alien Isolation. It will attract the Xenomorph and the Working Joes, both of which can easily overpower you. Additionally, getting into fights with anyone is very loud, which plays directly into the game's sound design. Since Alien Isolation focuses on stealth, a big part of the game involves sneaking around and being quiet. If your character makes too much noise, you'll attract the xenomorph and likely get a game over. Staying quiet may seem easy, but it's actually quite difficult. Almost everything you do will attract attention. Walking around makes noise, running makes even more noise, whacking things with your wrench makes noise, firing a gun makes a ton of noise. Heck, even using your motion tracker makes noise. Your best option is usually crawling around the station and hiding whenever possible. This may not seem fun to have so many of your options limited, but these choices really add to the horror experience and make your character feel helpless. Additionally, when a player limits the amount of noise they're making, there's an eerie tension from the lack of sound, and the game's minimal ambience only adds to this feeling. Furthermore, one of the xenomorph's main sounds that notifies you of its presence is dripping drool, but this isn't very loud, so the player has an easier time hearing this while staying quiet. Conversely, the game's ambient sounds sometimes include dripping water, which can easily be mistaken for the drool. Intently listening for these subtle sounds and trying to discern if the alien is there only adds to the tension. The tension continues to build because you know the xenomorph is around somewhere. You can't hear it or see it, but you know it is there. And when it finally decides to show up, you can bet this thing is loud. Take a look at this clip and listen to the stark change in volume once the xenomorph shows up. This change in volume is shocking and puts the player more on edge than they already are. While the sound design does an excellent job of inciting fear in the player, the music amplifies this even more. The music of Alien Isolation was composed by brothers Christian and Joe Henson, as well as longtime collaborator Alexis Smith. It follows in the footsteps of most thriller movie scores. There's a lot of low drones, ethereal vocals, various percussion sounds, and tense orchestral strings. This choice is already perfect considering the source material. Many people are probably playing this game because they love the Alien movies, so there's no reason to stray too far from the music that's already in the franchise. But where Alien Isolation really comes into its own is with the sound choices. I mentioned earlier that players are often listening for dripping drool to get an idea of where the xenomorph is, but there are two other sounds that also help with this: clanging metal and monstrous growls. Later in the game, there are some scenes that are particularly nerve-wracking. In these scenes, there are some new instruments that weren't present in the music earlier on: metallic percussion and scratchy vocals. Both of these could easily be confused, with the xenomorph banging against metal and growling. Take a listen to this track from later in the game and some of the xenomorph's growls. Normally, I don't like when sounds are unclear like this, especially in a video game where audio can serve as cues for the player, but in this situation, I actually love it. While playing the game, there were so many times I heard these vocals in the music and thought it was the xenomorph. It scared me and made me want to keep hiding, even when it turned out the xenomorph wasn't there. And this is exactly the point of the game. It's supposed to scare you. You're supposed to fear this big bad alien. The fact that these instruments are similar to the sounds you're listening for really compounds the anxiety that's created later in the game. While there's no confirmation to my knowledge, I have to imagine these sound choices were intentional by the composers. And wow, do they freaking work. All in all, Alien Isolation is a great game with an absolutely incredible attention to audio detail. If you have any appreciation for game audio, sound design, and/or video games, I highly recommend checking it out. Even if you're not a fan of horror or thriller media, just play this game for a few hours and you'll start to appreciate this amazing audio experience. And if you're up for it, there's apparently a mod for the PC version that lets you play the game in VR. Yeah, I think I'll pass on that. Have you played Alien Isolation? What do you think of its soundscape? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, please feel free to use the comments to let me know if there's any game you'd like me to analyze in the future. Until then, I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.